There's nothing more lame than talking to an unempowered man, and vice versa. There's nothing lamer if you're an empowered man to have a discussion with an unempowered, not confident woman. So today, on Women's Day, I'm not talking about women empowerment. I'm just talking about empowerment. Welcome, Tracy Harmoush. Hi, everybody. Sorry, it's just so random. My dad's like my biggest fan. He's like the loudest clapper in the room. So thank you for having me. It's truly something to be proud of that I'm actually called to give a talk about empowerment and about influence in general. So thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate all of you guys being here to listen to what I have to say. Well, just to start with, let's backtrack a second. I presented my presentation that had about 30 slides to my husband last night. And as I was presenting it, he yawned a couple of times. And then I caught myself kind of clock watching and thinking, I'm kind of bored with what I'm talking about. And there was a reason for it. It's because I thought that I had to prepare so much for a conversation that I never necessarily had with myself or with other people. I had to research what feminism was, when it started, what is the new form of feminism. We hear pockets of it, right? Because we live in this day and age where we're on social media, so once in a while things pop up. But when I had to give a presentation about it, I figured, listen, I need to kind of backtrack to learn it. And then I thought to myself, there's a reason why I was called here. And I talk from my heart, I usually talk my truth, and you will see it today, this is what I'm gonna do. I was called here not because I really lived as a feminist, generally speaking, but it's because I lived in spite of that. I worked in spite of that. And that is why today I'm not going to talk to you about women empowerment, because I never found my empowerment because I'm a woman or needed women affirmation or men's affirmation to find my empowerment. I had to really sit with myself and think, why am I empowered right now? I never really fought that fight. I never really was part of it. And luckily, I'm in a first world country, so it wasn't necessarily something that I needed to fight. And I kind of got embarrassed, and I feel embarrassed sometimes when I'm asked to vocalize feminism or women empowerment, when truly and really, that was never really my fight. There are real people that are fighting for equality. There are women that don't have an education, that are not allowed to get educated. There are women that are not allowed to speak their mind, and if they do, they can get criminalized. So truly, really and truly, women empowerment and feminism was not really applicable in my day-to-day. Now, that doesn't go to say that there isn't misogyny out there. That equally doesn't go to say that there isn't manipulative women out there. And in both cases, people have their opinions and people are who they are. But do I really feel like I wasn't empowered because I'm a woman? I can't say that's true. So if I was having this conversation about feminism or women empowerment in a third world country, I would be giving you a very, very different speech. But today, I'm talking to very privileged people, all working alongside each other in an office. Maybe one man is more senior than another woman, or vice versa. You'll find a more senior woman than another man. But at the end of the day, the truth of the matter is, feminism in many parts of our world right now has become a first world problem. So let me give you like a basic example to simplify things. This is my sister, Rhea. She's over here. I'm using her for my example. So my sister is the kind of person that will defend me till her grave, no matter what I do. No matter who I hurt or who I cheat on, let's say, she will defend me and she'll say that it wasn't her. Like, even if I'm caught red-handed, right? Rhea is the kind of person that will defend me to my grave, in private or in public. My truth, though, is that I always call my sister out when she's wrong, and she gets upset with me. And it always seems like I'm the one that's always criticizing her, and she never criticizes me, but both of us have noble intentions. My way of showing my truth to Rhea is to be straightforward and honest with her, and honest with myself about the things I stand for and the things I don't. And for Rhea, though, sometimes she'll turn a blind eye because I'm her sister, and that's what matters more. But aside from sisterhood, or aside from friendship, how many of you guys fall in Rhea's category or in Tracy's category when it comes to the movement that you're following, the cause that you're pushing, or the political party that you're pushing or advocating for. So how many of you are defending your political party, your cause, your movement, no matter what, no matter how the agenda changes, no matter how the agenda no longer matches your values? How many of you still stick to that? Because you know what? It's just your political party. It's just your cause. It's just your movement. There's no wrongdoing. Okay, very few people. So we claim, right? Because I don't believe that. Then there's the other version. How many of you would say, you know what? I may have been supporting this cause, but now it no longer makes sense. It no longer applies to me. So I'm kind of going to take a step back because this is not me anymore. I hope a lot of you. So I feel like it's kind of the opposite in terms of reality of what we're seeing in this world.
Unless I be.
So yeah, first world problems, feminism. This is what I feel a lot of people rant about these days because we're in a privileged position to do so. Feminism started as equal rights to men, equal opportunity, equal education, equal voice to be heard. Just no more gender discrimination. That's all feminism was. And I'm pretty sure in this day and age, almost everybody would agree, you know what, that pretty much makes sense. I don't think there should be any other version, especially in our first world country. Obviously, you have things around the world that are happening that is no longer applicable. But as I said, I'm giving this talk to you guys, more privileged people. So my tone of voice is going to be very different. So the problem with first world feminism is that it no longer became a fight for equality. It became the fight, in many cases, to be privileged over men, for women to have a privilege over men, and to demonize men. Men are the problem. It's men's fault. Girl power. We want to see women in office. We don't want to see men in office. So how is that really fair? I mean, isn't that a bit of a contradiction to what the real fight was meant to be? The real fight was for equality. It wasn't to be superior to men. Yet, first world problem feminism has sounded to me like we're kind of in the fight to overpower men. And we want to show men that they're the problem, and we want to abolish masculinity altogether, and we want to scream out loud about femininity. Now, it also is a fight, eternal battle between women and women, because now if you're feminine, if you like chivalry, if you are a caregiver, you're no longer a feminist. That's not a feminist anymore. So I don't know. Like, I don't even know what to do with this anymore because there's a fight and a fight and a fight that no longer makes sense. So I don't really associate myself to the modern day feminist anymore. I don't associate myself to women power in general. When I come to think of women power, I think of that, exactly that, the tone of voice, that it's girls and girls and girls and we don't need men. And I, for one, I need men in my life. But I don't just need men, I need empowered men. Now, what does empowered men mean? Empowered men is not powerful men in the context of toxic masculinity. And I'll get to that with my key to, I know I'm really lame with our presentations, but whatever, it's not the point. The point is I'm helping you guys just understand my point. There's a key to finding empowerment. And from how I've done it for myself, accidentally, and stumbled across it, it wasn't because I demanded it. It's because I earned it. I worked for it. I didn't ask people and chant about it. I worked for it, and then therefore I felt empowered. So what I believe to be true is the key to empowerment is confidence. If you're able to build your confidence, you're able to work through it, create a foundation that's strong enough that you have a pillar of confidence, and from there and only there is true empowerment achieved. Because a lot of people that are asking for empowerment are not confident, because the fight that they're fighting is coming from a very victimizing place, it's coming from a very insecure place, and it's coming from a place where they feel entitled to it, and not because they truly earned empowerment. So today, we're not talking about empowerment for women. I'm sorry if I'm disappointing everybody, but this is not a women's empowerment speech. This is empowerment to everybody. I'm going to talk about the empowerment that I believe to be true for both men and women. Let's start with the first example. This is I just had to sit and jot down what is it that I pretty much feel built my confidence along the way. So I was going back and forth thinking about it, and I realized, first step, I came to Dubai, I was 21 years old, and I became financially independent fully. Financial independence for me gave me a lot of confidence. It allowed me to feel like I can take care of me. It gave me the protection to take care of anyone who's depending on me. And it also gave me the confidence that if anything were to happen in my future partnerships, in a marriage, and my husband is not able to step up, I'm able to step up. And I always believed that because it was true. So financial independence was my first layer to building confidence. Secondly, self-sufficiency. Self-sufficiency is something that I really believe will help in anyone's confidence, not to feel like you need to depend on someone to take care of something for you. Now, that doesn't say that we can't ask for help. Of course, we ask for help when we need it. But to know that you can do something yourself is empowering. I can get maintenance to come and fix my house. I can put up a new tech appliance in my house. I could do my own laundry. I can cook my own food. I don't need someone to do it for me now. If I have the luxury, I can get a housekeeper. She can help me, of course. If I have the means, I could hire people to do jobs for me and delegate, great. And we all should do that. Delegation is a really amazing part of life. And partnership is a good part of life, right? To segregate roles. One person has a role, you have another role, and you kind of come together. But self-sufficiency should come at some point in life so that if anything changes, if life took a turn for the worse, we can all manage. What would you do if you did the right thing, you got married to a wonderful wife who took care of you, and you left your mom's home, you got married to a wonderful wife, and she took care of everything in the household? God forbid, 100 times. 10 years later, your wife passes away, or your wife divorces you. 20 years later, you're 45 years old, you're 50 years old, and you've never done your laundry in your life. You've never made a meal for yourself in your life. How do you get your self-sufficiency back?
Get married.
Get married again. That's a great answer, by the way. And vice versa. And the opposite is true. So a lot of women are lucky enough to marry very wealthy men. But the wheel turns in life, and sometimes these men lose their money. What happens when you have 3 kids and you can't help out and you can't support? So it's also good to be self-sufficient and financially independent. So these are 2 pillars that I believe built my confidence. I got uncomfortable. This was another huge one for me. As I started to grow in my early 20s, I started to do things that I knew would kind of shake me a little bit or that were a bit difficult for me, like traveling by myself to Zimbabwe on a volunteer program with nobody and lost luggage. Being stuck there for 2 weeks, sleeping in, I would say, what is called almost like a prison cell, because it was the most basic of the basic of volunteer programs, but people adapt. So by day 1, I was crying, thinking, I don't even know what I'm doing here. I physically had to open a map to see where my actual house is and where I am, to think, I cannot believe I made it this far to this random place by myself. But on day 3, after pulling out buffalo poop and cleaning the whole environment around the volunteer program for saving rhinos, I would go back to that hotel room, I wish, that volunteer program accommodation. Even though there were a bit of spiders walking around relative to where I was, I'd lie down and I'd think, oh my God, finally I'm home. And I would sleep like a baby. So people adapt, humans adapt very easily. So it's good to get uncomfortable. You get uncomfortable, you build another thick layer of skin. You get a little bit more uncomfortable, you build a thick layer of skin. Imagine doing that for 2 and 3 and 5 years and 10 years. How much more confident would you be? Number 4, I give a huge credit to my fitness journey. Everyone who probably knows me from Instagram thinks that I have always been a fitness coach. If you don't know, my background is finance. But the truth is, I only started my real fitness journey when I was 30 or 31. I wanted to learn handstands for the first time. I wanted to do calisthenics for the first time. I wanted to do backflips for the first time. And almost everybody told me, you're insane. Like, there's no way your body can do that. You've never done it in your life. There's just not going to happen. And it happened. And it didn't only happen. I started teaching it. People asked me to teach them, and I became good at teaching it because I was the 30-year-old who did the handstand for the first time. So the other 30-year-old would think, if she knew how to do it, she knows how to teach it, and which was true because I knew how to put my mind in a 30-year-old's mind. I know what the fear of a 30-year-old doing a handstand for the first time is. It's not the same thing as someone who has no inhibitions and who's 18 and doing a handstand for the first time, right? So the discipline of working on a skill and getting good at it, I learned through sports, and I can't tell you the amount of confidence I got through sports. And not only for a skill set, but even basically going to the gym, building your physique, taking care of your well-being, taking care of your health. There's no room for losing confidence when you do something like that. The amount of confidence you get just by knowing that you have achieved something that's hard because you showed up for yourself on a day-to-day basis, as hard as watching your nutrition or watching your body or training, is difficult. It's not the easiest thing, but imagine doing it for a year and noticing just how much muscle mass you have, just how much strength you have. This is not about weight loss and I want to have a big booty. This is not aesthetics. This is confidence. This is learning how to build your confidence through sports. I stopped playing victim. I gave excuses for a lot of the mistakes I've done. One of my roles in finance, I got made redundant. It wasn't my fault, it was their fault. At some point, I started not performing very well on my social media. It's the algorithm's fault, it's not me. It's always someone else's fault. And I think in women empowerment, we always tend to think it's men's fault. It's not your fault, it's a man's fault. And that is the problem, because we kind of are in a situation where we don't want to take responsibility, and we hold this women empowerment speech to our advantage sometimes. And I think in most cases that you all have been working with each other for quite some time, I'm assuming, and you've all seen very senior women in your offices, but you've also seen very senior men. Now, if it just so happens that there's an imbalance, it just so happens that a man and a woman are up for a promotion and the man got it, maybe he just did a better job. Maybe if you were really that good and that qualified, you would have gotten the role. I don't believe in this day and age, 90%, I'm not going to give exact numbers, but 90% of people will pick you if you were that good, in spite of you being a woman. So using that to our advantage when that is not our fight is not fair to the people that are fighting the real fight. Women want to vote for women all the time. We want women in office. We only want women to run the world. But it may be that the 10 people that are elected are 10 men and they're 10 qualified men equally. There may be 10 women that are all qualified and they will be elected. But the problem is that people like to fight a fight that they were never fighting for. This is my point. Like, to run for office is a huge role. And it is okay to accept and to acknowledge that we have a nurturing part in us as women. Men have a more providing part. Now, it doesn't go to say, back to my financial independence, that I don't want to also provide and help in my house, but it doesn't change my instinct and the majority of women's instinct that I also want to be a nurturer. I also want to be a caregiver. So to find a woman that is willing to run for office or run for CEO and be the caregiver and be the nurturer is quite difficult. So maybe in first world countries, when women are not getting those roles, it's because they just don't want those roles. But other people who are not even applying for those roles are saying, yeah, why aren't we seeing women presidents? Because it's damn hard. And women also want a family. And women also want to be parents. So maybe it's hard to do both. It's not because they're not getting the job, but because they're not applying for it in the first place. So let's stop playing victim when it's not necessary. Because the times when it's necessary, we want people to hear us. We don't want people to cringe when we talk about these things. I'm going to ask you guys an honest question. How many of you cringe when you hear the word women empowerment or when you hear the word feminism? You don't even know why you're cringing, but you cringe. Men, it's okay. You can raise your hand. No one's going to judge you. Women, close your eyes. Men, tell me how many of you feel that way. It's cringeworthy. Because it's cringeworthy sometimes, because people are fighting a fight that's not theirs. So when you cry wolf over and over again, at some point no one's going to listen. So make it count. When it's really a matter of sexual harassment, when it's really a matter of misogyny, make it count. Earn it. Earn it is one of the things I live by, and it also goes with the financial independence. It also goes with your education. Earn your right to get a seat at whatever table you're fighting for. I had to earn my position in fitness and in social media when I had nothing to do with it. I mean, it was very difficult for me to leave a very senior role in investment banking and start from scratch and go to people's homes and do private PT lessons and don't know what the hell I'm doing just because I trained myself. I'm training other people that wanted me to train them. I just felt like it was beneath me. But what am I going to do? Think that I deserve a spot at the top in a brand new industry when I never even earned it? It's just not right. So I had to work my way up and earn it. I got my first designer bag 1 year after I started working. It cost me $2,000. It's a Louis Vuitton bag. I still have it till this very day because it felt so good that I could pay for something and earn it myself. I mean, obviously in social media, I get gifted stuff a lot now. I get gifted a lot of creams, and you should see how the creams look like. They're all dusted, they're in some corner because I didn't have to buy them. They were gifted to me, and they doesn't feel as good as me buying a $500 box of a cream box. I would literally be so cheap and putting a little bit on my face, but now I'm just like emptying the whole thing, waiting for it to finish because I know I'm going to have a brand new stock coming to my house because I didn't earn it. So it feels so much better when you can earn it. I changed my friends. So this is all I'm telling you, like throughout my 20s, late 20s. I think I was about 30, 31, where I changed a bunch of my friends. A lot of people didn't inspire me anymore. A lot of people didn't make me feel like I can be the best version of myself. So I thought when I started doing this journey, naturally, it's not like, okay, bye guys, I'm not talking to you anymore. I had to naturally make new friends because I was putting myself in social circles with people that were like-minded. It was no longer about, yeah, guys, let's go to the club and let's all joke around. I just literally started hanging out with people that had some sort of ambition, some sort of expertise, and it made me want to do better for myself. Another layer of confidence. Forever student. This is, I think, in my 30s, where I started to realize how important it is for me to listen, less so than talk at. See, there's a fake layer of confidence, and whoever is 30 now and who's in their 20s before, you may know what I'm talking about. There's the obnoxious, opinionated, constantly talking at people. You think that if you're feisty, then that makes you confident. But the fact of the matter is, when you learn how to respond more than react, when you learn how to listen, when you learn how to learn, you realize that, you know what, I'm actually quite confident now because I'm calm and I'm centered. I'm not all about the show, all about people thinking I'm confident and impressing people. So that was more the true layer of confidence. It didn't come because I clicked a button. It came because I did small little changes in my life that led to that. I became an expert. This is one that I need to really emphasize because I also want you guys to share your opinion on this. How many of you have been in a meeting where you try to prepare for it, and because you don't really care about the content, you don't really care about what you're doing, you kind of memorized it a bit. It almost sounded like you're rehearsing it, and it wasn't really understanding the content, and then you would freak out if someone would ask you a question because you're like, I don't really want to answer a question that I don't know the answer to. How many of you have been in a meeting like that at any point in your life? But I believe that to be an expert at something, you really need to care about what you're doing. And as much as I was in investment banking, as much as I was shifting departments, sometimes the content was just so heavy for me because I just didn't care. At some point, I did not care. So how am I supposed to ask for a huge seat or be an expert at something that I don't even have the willpower to put enough time into it? So shifting industries and accidentally becoming really good at it. I sit in any meeting right now across anybody without any intimidation, and I'm able to say, sorry, I just don't agree with you, and this is why. I'm not nodding along maybe because maybe I'm wrong. You know, I'm not second guessing myself because I cared enough about what I'm doing to be an expert at it. Another huge layer of confidence. And then finally, a growth mindset. I was not the smartest person in school. I never was the A student, maybe when I was really young. And I would fail in some tests. I would do makeup exams. And I was constantly told that, Tracy, you need special treatment because you're not like the brightest light bulb in the room. And it was true, I wasn't. But I never allowed that to drag through in my adulthood. I realized that when I wasn't being tested, when I didn't have someone breathing down my neck, when I didn't have a middle-aged teacher teaching me something through a book that I didn't really care about, and I had the freedom to learn based on choice, based on the love for education, based on podcasts because they're more interesting for me, I could breathe. I could breathe. And I realized something, that there's a growth mindset there. There's the mindset that instead of being a fixed mindset where this is the IQ of this person and this is the IQ of this person, that comparison of smart and stupid is a fixed mindset. You're putting glass ceiling on yourself. How many of you know people who were with you in class and they were A students? And maybe you weren't the A student, but you always used to cheat off their exams, or you would kind of think, oh my God, this person's going to kill it in the future. And then maybe you touched base with them 20 years later and you're like, really? That's what you're doing? I thought you would be somewhere else. But then you look at yourself and you're like, wow, damn, I'm so proud of myself. I never realized I would be in this position right now. How many of you had made that comparison? There's a reason for it, because people who have always been told, you're so smart, and have never really struggled, later in life, that's back in school, later in life would realize, okay, now life came at me, and life, ma birham, it makes things difficult, and you will be in a position where it's trying to test you. So a lot of people that grew up never having to fight would think, you know what, I'm just going to stay in my lane. I'm going to do the thing that I can do best, because I never want someone to tell me I'm a failure. I'm not comfortable with this feeling. I've never been in a position where I failed. Yet, someone like me, who has always been told, you don't know what you're doing, yalla, you get good grades, and I fail after failure after failure after failure. Failure kind of built like a thick skin on me. I would look at failure and be like, okay, another failure, big deal. So let me just try something new. Let me try it again. It never really scared me. So unconsciously, I realized that this was happening, and only until I read a lot about it and I found a book about growth mindset, I realized, damn, that's me. It's true. You have a fixed mindset and then you have a growth mindset. When you realize that your hard work can always surpass, you never have to limit yourself in that regard where you think, this is my capability. I'm not good at math. I'm not good at public speaking, because when I was 8 years old, everybody laughed at me when I made a mistake while public speaking. So you build this trauma and you say, I'm not good at public speaking. Why can't you just be good at it? Just learn, do the work. So do the work is a huge way of you accomplishing many small goals to get better at what you're bad at. And then finally, after all this is done, 10 years for me and still going, there's some sort of layer of confidence achieved. You're confident. And when you're confident, only when you're confident, you reach empowerment. Empowerment is then earned and it's not demanded. You don't need to cry wolf in order to ask for men to empower you, ask for other women to empower you. Because when you're in a position when you're truly empowered and you feel it really, then even if there's misogyny around you, even though there's anyone contradicting your beliefs of what empowerment truly is, you're like, okay, great, next one. I'll leave this office, it's not for me. Next one. I'll leave this guy, he's not for me. And empowerment, as I said, is not just applicable to women, it's applicable to men. Men that are empowered are men who don't need to go for a woman who's younger just because she's younger to feel like he's a man. He would rather go for a woman who can level with him, even if she's his age, even if she's older. An empowered man is not taken aback by compliments of a woman and doesn't feel like the only thing he needs to do is flash his money in front of a woman so that she can love him. He just feels, in spite of that, if I don't need to flash my money in front of somebody. I don't want to flash my money in front of a woman and get a woman that way. So then you end up having two genders, empowered people, not empowered women only, taking over men, emasculating men. You're both in this world simultaneously working together to be empowered. I need empowered men in my life. I need it. I need people around me to have good conversations. There's nothing more lame than talking to an unempowered man, and vice versa. There's nothing lamer if you're an empowered man than having to have a discussion with an unempowered, not confident woman. So today, on Women's Day, I'm not talking about women empowerment. I'm just talking about empowerment. So happy Empowerment Day to everybody. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.